Hey everybody, I got another video here, and this is a video that is inspired by a couple of questions I got from my video on free will, and the question was basically put like this, just to summarize it: is it always right to seek the truth? Like, is seeking truth justifiable? Right? Are there times when seeking truth is not a good thing? That's a really good question. That's a really good question. And my initial, when I first hear that, my initial thing is like, of course, truth is always right. Truth. But I did some thinking about it. And in the end, what I kind of came up with was that truth seeking may not actually be the best thing to do. Truth seeking is essentially what the scientific method is. When you do science, you are looking for the truth. Because I'm a scientific person and I believe in the scientific method, my initial reaction is always, yes, of course we should look for the truth, without question. And there's a lot of evidence to support that claim that we should look for the truth, because think about all the things we have right now. The mere fact that I can make this video, talking into a microphone, looking into a camera, presenting it to you via the internet, that is all from the fruits of truth seeking in science. When we find out the reality of the world, of nature, we learn how it works. If we learn how it works, we can control it better, we can manipulate it better, we can invent things that makes our lives better. It reduces our suffering, it increases our well-being. So that would be my initial claim. But I had to dive a little deeper and go, okay, well, is it ever possible, is there ever a moment where a truth is bad? Something that we could discover that actually causes more harm than good, and therefore is not worth finding out. Okay, we find out that we don't have free will, or free will is an illusion, but that just could cause more suffering because people could get, disenchanted, they can get nihilistic, and they can get depressed, and they feel like they don't have control over their lives. I don't necessarily agree with that. I do think that finding out that free will is an illusion, that truth in particular, actually the benefits do outweigh the cons or the negatives. I do think it's a net positive to find out that free will is an illusion, just due to all the implications in terms of how we treat other people, how we hold people responsible. And I think it would eventually decrease the suffering overall of humans, because we'd be more empathetic and realize that people that are down and suffering are just unlucky. And so we would do a better job of trying to help them. We wouldn't feel like it's a kind of a everyman dog-eat-dog world, pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Because it's a physical impossibility to lift yourself up by a bootstrap.
Kind of thing. Like, we would believe that people are not in the position that they're in because of their own free will, but because of unlucky streaks, let's say. All that aside, are there certain truths out there that if we were to find out would have a net negative rather than a net positive effect on the well-being of humans? I'm starting from the basis that well-being of humans is our bedrock, so to speak. It's kind of where we're starting from. I'm making the assumption, and I don't think it's actually a bad assumption. I think it's a correct assumption. And I can maybe make another video on this idea of well-being as a bedrock. But I'm going to start from there. That's going to sort of be the premise one, let's say, is that you have that human well-being is what we should shoot to increase. So science shoots to find truth. Truth can increase well-being. It can also decrease well-being in certain ways. Is there any truth out there in which, if we were to find it out, discover it, so to speak, it would cause more harm than good? And the answer is resoundingly yes. Just take a minute right now. You can even pause the video and try and think of some truths that, if we were to find them out, would cause a net negative effect on human well-being. Just take a moment to think about it. See what pops into your head. I don't really think we've found out any truths yet that have caused a net negative harm to humans. I think pretty much every truth that we've discovered has actually increased the well-being of humans. To sort of now imagine some truths that may be out there that we haven't discovered yet, I'm going to use an analogy that a philosopher named Nick Bostrom came up with. And this analogy is what he calls the urn of invention. It's this urn, and inside the urn, you have white balls, black balls, and gray balls. Now, a white ball represents a truth, let's say, or an invention, or something that we discover about the nature of reality that has a net positive, that is overwhelmingly good for the well-being of humans. A gray ball would be one that has pros and cons associated with. Maybe it's not such a clear not such a clear benefit to humans. It can come with some attached suffering, but on the whole, it's not terrible. And then there's the black ball. And the black ball, if you pull that is not just necessarily a net negative to human well-being. It might be a human-ending, civilization-ending invention. And what science is, and what humans are pretty much doing right now, is they're reaching into that urn and just pulling out balls. And every ball they pull out is either white, gray, or black. So he argues that you don't know how many black balls are in the urn. We don't know the odds of pulling a black ball. Humans have just been pulling balls. We're just reaching in there and pulling balls out. We're trying to discover as much as we can. That's pretty much science. It's just science is reach into the urn, pull out a ball as fast as we possibly can. Luckily, we've only pulled out mostly white balls. We pulled out some gray balls. The example that he gives for a pretty obvious gray ball is the ability to split the atom, because of course we can create nuclear power plants with those, which generate massive amounts of electricity and that are relatively safe for the most part in terms of their emissions. They're relatively clean, environmentally friendly. We have quite a big supply of uranium. But of course, the atomic bomb is a side effect of that, and that caused millions of deaths. The number of atomic bombs we have stockpiled around the world is enough to annihilate civilization. That ball, right, that invention, the idea of the ability to split the atom and basically do nuclear fission to create nuclear power, nuclear bombs, that is a gray ball. Assuming there is a black ball, at least one, right, or maybe many, there is a non-zero chance that at some point, if humans stick around long enough and science just keeps pulling balls from the urn, we're going to pull a black ball.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds."
See ya. Civilization disappears. Now, what are some examples of black balls? One argument that Nick Bostrom tries to make in his claim of what a black ball might look like, I find I don't buy it 100%, and this is his claim. He basically uses the the gray ball of nuclear technology and says it could have been a black ball if and only if the ability to split the atom and create a nuclear bomb was easier than it ended up being. So his argument was the reason why nuclear technology is a gray ball and not a black ball is because it's really, 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 really hard to make an atomic bomb. It requires refining of uranium. It requires a lot of energy to create these bombs, and you can't just do it in your backyard, right? Some random Joe Schmo can't just go to his backyard, take a few supplies, and make an atomic bomb. If that was the case, then that would be a black ball, because people would be making atomic bombs in their backyard everywhere. We'd have nuclear explosions going off all over the place, and the civilization would end pretty quickly. His argument is, we're just lucky that it's a gray ball and not a black ball. We just happen to be lucky that making an atomic bomb is really difficult and not easy. I think that's a false premise. A nuclear bomb unleashes a tremendous amount of energy, right? And it's extremely destructive. But in order to make something that is that destructive, you almost by definition have to put a lot of energy in, and it requires a lot more than just something very simple. I don't think it was ever possible for something so destructive to be so easily made. I think it might be mutually exclusive. Now, I'm not 100% sure on that. That's just my hunch. And that's where I kind of disagree with Bostrom. Now, I don't really buy the potential black ball of the nuclear thing for reasons I just mentioned. But is there any other black ball in there? I can envision some. I do think there probably is some black balls in there. One of the most pressing black balls that we may have already pulled, by the way, we may have already pulled a black ball and we just don't know it yet. There's two balls that I think could have been pulled that are what we would call black balls. One could be artificial intelligence. We just don't know where artificial intelligence can go. I imagine it could take us down a great road of increasing our well-being, or artificial intelligence could get so powerful and so detached from the goals of humans that it comes up with its own goals, and it looks at humans as just a roadblock to that goal. And it just decides to wipe us out, right? That's totally possible. A lot of people will argue that. I'm just throwing that out there as a potential black ball.
A superintelligence with such technological maturity would be extremely powerful. It would be able to get what it wants. We would then have a future that would be shaped by the preferences of this AI.
We're very close to the cutting edge in AI, and it scares the hell out of me. It's capable of vastly more than almost anyone knows, and the rate of improvement is exponential. The danger of AI is much greater than the danger of nuclear warheads, by a lot.
Once humans develop artificial intelligence, it would take off on its own and redesign itself at an ever-increasing rate. Humans, who are limited by slow biological evolution, couldn't compete and would be superseded.
It's not that our machines will become spontaneously malevolent. The concern is really that we will build machines that are so much more competent than we are that the slightest divergence between their goals and our own could destroy us.
The other black ball that we may have already pulled, and you can't put it back in, by the way, that's what Bostrom says. He says, once you pull a ball from the urn, you can't put it back in. You can't uninvent something. You can't undiscover something, which I think is partly true, right? As soon as something is discovered and it becomes common knowledge, you can't put it back in. But I could imagine a scenario where a small group, an isolated group of scientists sort of stumble upon a discovery, like they pull a black ball and they realize it's a black ball and they go, oh, shit.
Let's see how you did tonight. First number down is 40.
Oh my God!
And then they all kind of look at each other and go, let's put this thing back in the urn and destroy the evidence. I could see that happening, and that may have happened. By the way, that could have happened. Who knows? There could be like some like small little group of scientists somewhere that's pulled a black ball before, and no one knows. And they just went, ooh, let's put this one back in the bag. We don't know. So I think it's possible to pull a black ball and put it back in the bag. It would just have to be, the amount of people that knew about that black ball being pulled would have to be so small that it didn't leak, right? The information didn't get out and all traces were destroyed. But let me tell you, if there's any black ball that we've already pulled, the one that I'm most confident about, just based off empirical evidence, is the discovery of fossil fuels. The ability to drill for oil, mine for coal, and frack for natural gas. And the discovery that if we can just get that and burn it, we generate electricity. And the CO2 side effect of that leads to global warming and climate change, that, my friends, that's a black ball. Potentially, if we don't get things together. That could lead to runaway climate change, which leads to inhospitable environments, species go extinct, biodiversity decreases, food webs collapse, and of course, you, me, all of humanity, we're part of a food web. We rely on food webs. We rely on ecosystem services. If those collapse, guess what? We're done. Unless we figure some way to get off this planet and figure out how to artificially generate life and all that stuff, we're done. So if there's any black ball that's already been pulled, it's the fossil fuel black ball. That is a black ball. It's at least a gray ball. It's a dark shade of gray. I got to look at that ball real close. I'm like, is that gray or is that black? Any other point in human history based on what we know? So I would argue that so far, truth-seeking has paid off, right? But do we want to keep risking it? Do we keep reaching in that urn? To answer that question, we'd have to be able to look in the urn. But here's the problem. It's a paradox because we can't look in the urn. You cannot know an invention until it's invented.
There are known knowns. There are known unknowns. There are also unknown unknowns. Not going to say which it is.
Right? It's impossible. So we have to either, one, stop pulling balls from the urn, which means stop innovation, which, hey, let's be real, ain't gonna happen. Or we slow down our ball pulling. We go, let's take our foot off the gas just a touch so that we don't run into a black ball sooner than we otherwise need to. There may be a ball in the urn right now that's black if we were to pull it right now. If we perchance don't pull it yet, we pull other white balls and we eventually invent technologies that could mitigate against that black ball becomes a gray ball. Or the third option is, hey, let's just keep our foot on the gas, baby. Let's drive this thing right off the cliff.
Far off the cliff.
Here's the board.
That's probably what's going to happen, to be honest, because everything in our society is set up to pull balls from the urn. We have a free market society in the United States. It's a capitalistic society. How do you make money in a capitalist society? You provide a good. How do you provide a good? You make new goods. You create inventions. You come up with ideas. You pull balls from the urn. And that is what we do. To change that is extremely, extremely, extremely unlikely. To answer the question, is truth seeking always a good? I think we cannot say definitively yes or no, because we don't know if there are black balls in the urn. I would feel comfortable, and again, we can never know this for sure, but I am comfortable saying that there's a greater than 0% chance that there's a black ball in the urn, which means there's a greater than 0% chance we could pull a black ball. Meaning we will pull a black ball at some point if humans stick around long enough, right? If we're not killed off by a random event like, an asteroid impact or something crazy like that. All other things equal, we will eventually pull a black ball. Unless we get really lucky in the order we pull the balls. If we pull white balls early enough that turn potential black balls into white balls. If I had to summarize my position on this after thinking this through, is that yes, there are potential black balls that we can pull. There are potential truths to know that would cause civilization-ending information to be revealed. But I think it's a small chance, but it's still a chance.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
What I would say is we need to pull the balls and really keep an eye on, let's figure out what color they are before we go too far down the road of utilizing them. So let's, instead of what we're doing right now, which is pull ball, pull ball, pull ball, pull ball, and not really look too much at the potential for it, right? Because sometimes we pull a ball and we don't even know what color it is until the consequences have happened. So it's like, let's pull a ball, really look at it. Let's figure out, is that a dark shade of gray or is that black? We got to look at the balls. Guys, let's look at our balls. Come on now. I think as a society, what we need to do, we need to get down and dirty with our balls and take a peek at them. Pull a ball and really analyze the pros, the cons, the potential consequences. And I think that's probably the best bet, which is probably true of almost everything in life. It's like, be thoughtful. Let's try and make progress, decrease the suffering of everyone on earth, increase the well-being of people, but let's do it in a way that's thoughtful, that's methodological, that's analytical, that's logical, that's reasonable, with foresight. And let's not rush too much. Let's take our time. Let's be a little safer rather than sorry. And I think that's where I come down on that. If you agree with me, let me know. If you disagree with me, if you think I'm missing something big here, again, put a comment, send me a message, let me know. I wasn't planning on making, but I just sort of, based off of that comment, I was like, you know what? I'm making this video because it's really interesting to me. It's a fascinating topic. I will link the TED Talk to the Nick Bostrom Urn of Invention thing. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys have a great one. I hope everyone's staying safe out there amidst this crazy COVID-19 situation. Peace. Love y'all. Have a good one.